Hey YouTube, this for the goats here. Welcome back to the channel. Well, last night I took first place at locals. I decided to play Fiendsmith Kashtira. So yeah, I basically took my previous deck that I showed the channel last time and I cut out the third engine because as good as the DBL star cards are, against higher level decks, I basically tell them to either draw you or going second to detonate you into oblivion. So I decided to cut that engine to give my deck less vulnerabilities to certain pieces of removal and interaction, up the hand trap count, and up the Fiendsmith and Kashtira ratios. Like I said, I went 4-0, and I actually lost one game that night. That was to Malice in the second round. So I beat Malice 2-1, I beat Blue Eyes 2-0, I beat Dynamorphia 2-0, and I beat Azamina 2-0. The Azamina White Forest. And also, chat, okay, viewers, riddle me this. How is the only game I lost last night the one game where I lanciered the Malice player twice? I don't know how that's possible, but yeah, that was the one game I lost. So anyway, let's get into this. I'm going to talk about what I played, what changes I'd make, etc. So to start things off, we have 2 Lacrima. The first change I make with this deck is this should be at 3. I'm going to get a 3rd copy when I get paid this month, because this is the best normal summon in the deck. It's one of the best anti-hand trap cards we have, because it can either, on summon, it can dump you a Fiendsmith card to the graveyard, and then you can link it off into the link one. Like Joshua Schmidt pointed out, you got to hand trap this thing several times for it to not give you some advantage. If they hand trap the send, you just make Requiem and get the Graver that way. If they hand trap the engraver after the link one afterwards, okay, you've still got access to your engraver, and you can then shuffle this back in the deck on their turn to make the Requiem again to get more advantage. Again, you should be playing 3 of this in this deck. When I get my paycheck, I'll be getting a 3rd one. This card's amazing. Combining that, we have 3 copies of engraver. Thank you to my friends at locals helping me get my hands on these. This card, again, great card. It gives you access to all your Fiendsmith spells and traps on discard. And in addition to this, it's a massive body, which in the grind game can be enough to just hold the line for a turn if you get into a very low resources hand trap exchange. Also, with this card being level 6, it gives you access not just to the rank 6s, but also Chaos Angel, which is really good at going second. And complementing those 2, we have the card that we both want to search from this, which is 2 Tracked. Honestly, while I would play 3 of Lacrima, I think 2 Tracked is enough, because I want to keep this card around, this deck around 40 cards if possible. So you play this, you search a Fiendsmith card, sorry, a Light Fiend card, then discard a card, which will usually be this card, which concerns stuff when it gets discarded. But it's actually really good if you open both of these, because you can then get access to your engraver or your Lacrima, and still get all the advantage of discarding a Lurry. Honestly, I like these ratios other than the 2 Lacrimas, so that was good. And we complement this with 1 copy of Fiendsmith in Paradise, a card you will draw, even though you don't want to. So I feel this card is basically a full ball blind for everything that's not your Desiree. And in Graveyard, you can Foolish a Desiree, which lets you then trigger its effect to get a removal, a piece of removal. This is also really good to send off a Lacrima if you already have access to your engraver line. But actually, in one game, I actually did manage to set this and resolve it with my Desiree on the field. Obviously, I won that game because I just recycled my links next turn and then just beat them to death with a massive Desiree. So that's the Fiendsmith part of the deck. Again, the only change I would make is adding a second Lacrima, sorry, a 3rd Lacrima. And complementing that, I chose to play the Kashtiras. Now, I've been trying some different variants of Fiendsmith in preparation for the Manchester Open. I tried Labyrinth Fiendsmith, I tried Fiendschmidt or Musket Fiendsmith, but the problem I have with those 2 decks is they're much more vulnerable to Bastiles, and I feel like the Fiendschmidt deck is really bad into Bastille control specifically. With the Kashtira card, at the very least, you get something on the board there to play through as your hand traps if they're playing Bastiles. So let's look into that. 3 copies of Fenrir. This is the best one in the deck because it can search any Kashtira, which means it can search you with a Unicorn for follow-up plays, because you can go, this card, if it gets removed, you play Unicorn, get the Birth, and then you can get this back. Or you can just get a second Fenrir if you're in a good position. Also, its banish effect on effect being activated is really powerful, or an attack, because it lets you break through monsters you can't beat in battle. And complementing the 3 Fenrir, we have double Unicorn and the 1 Birth. So, I'll be honest with you, Unicorn, I actually think I want to play 3 of this going forward, because this card won me my Malice match with ease. I basically just made him play through a bunch of hand traps which I could recycle with one of my XCs, and kept picking his extra deck apart over the course of a couple of turns, so the deck was just not functional anymore. And of course with Birth, I can keep recycling the Unicorn or the Fenrir. So yeah, I think I would up the Unicorns kind of surprisingly. And speaking of that, we have 3 Pressure Planet Race Off. Now this is obviously the starter of the deck. You can use it to search either Kashtira cards. However, I'm going to tell you this. Don't underestimate the power boost this card gives your monsters. It gives all your monsters 100 points attack and defense boosts for every attribute on the field. And I actually used this to beat an opposing Fiendsmith deck by making my Unicorn big enough to beat over their Caesar before I went into play that the Caesar could negate. So yeah, while this is mainly just here as a Kashtira searcher, don't underestimate the power boost it can give your monsters. That can help you swing for game. It can help you beat over things that you can't beat over normally. It came up a lot last night, surprisingly. And the rest is just non-engine, so yeah. Starting things off, obviously 3 Ash and 3 Vela. These are standard. I'm not going to talk too much about these because you all know what these do. So instead, let's get into the hand traps that I think are the best for me. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This card, if memory serves me, Josh only played 2 of these when he built this deck. But since he made that deck, Blue Eyes has become a thing. And this hitting a True Light is insane. It also came up against the Azamina deck because I hit the continuous spell that gets them in their plays going by searching the fusion spells. And at that point, they've got to commit a lot of their hand with the White Forests to make any kind of board, which play really well into my hand traps and 1-card starters. So yeah, this card, absolutely the MVP of last night for me. Then we have 3 Mourner. I think this is probably one of the weaker hand traps I played. It is good, but because it can only hit a card when it's special summoned, it's more telegraphed. You can't really bait your opponent into doing something and then react to it, but and waste the resource like you can with Effect Veiler. But it's still a great hand trap against a lot of decks, the special summon. And again, forces people to put more resources to the board, which you don't have to do with the Fiendsmiths and Kashtiras. 3 Draw and Lockbird. This card is a bit hit or miss, depending on what you're going up against. When I played against this, it was really good the 2 times I drew it. Because if you play a deck that has to search a lot of cards from its deck, you're basically guaranteed to beat them in the resource game. Kind of the same way as a Mulchami would do. But there are some decks that just summon from the deck all the time, and this does nothing against them. So obviously you saw that out for that matchup. And of course 3 Imperm. Basically the same thing as Veiler. However, it's really funny when your opponent forgets what column this is activated in, and you can turn this into a 2-for-1. Also, what makes this deck really good is that because it can make M7 really easily, you can recycle a lot of these cards in the grind game, which is really powerful. Now, I was originally playing, I did play Nibiru last night, but I came to realize it was the worst matchup in the deck because it clashed with all my Kashtira cards. So I've moved it to the side deck for matchups where it's really needed, and instead I'm playing 3 Forbidden Droplets because it can dump Fiendsmith cards into your graveyard. It can also, it's one of the best cards you can play going second because you can just discard extra copies of one of your engines or duplicate hand traps so they still have value. And with this combined with the planet, you're going to do a lot of damage attacking into a board that's weakened by this card. And of course, officially with 1 Call by the Grave, because this is a broken card that helps you in hand trap wars and probably should not be a thing. And actually, speaking of that, if I've seen some people argue this card could come back to more than 1 because of how many hand traps are being played these days. Guys, the reason we're playing these many hand traps is because they aren't that good anymore. You have to play that many hand traps to even have an impact on the modern decks. Putting this card back to more than 1 would just guarantee rogue decks would struggle more against things like Raziel and Malice. So no, keep this card at 1, please. And that was the 40 card main deck. Let's just move on to the extra. This is quite simple. For the Fiendsmith cards, 1 Moon, 2 Requiem, 2 Sequence, 1 Agamande, 1 and 1 Desiree. Now the one change I would make in this list, I would cut probably one of the sequences for a second Desiree, so I can Desiree on the field and still have follow-up with the trap. But here we have, this card can summon a Fiendsmith from the deck. It's not once per turn, but you can only summon it once per turn. So you can use this to get a lot of grind game by just recycling by sending out all your Fiendsmith in the deck and then recycling them with the graveyard effects. Desiree is obviously the best card in the Fiendsmith lineup because it's a multi-card negate. Also, it does not because it can negate any face-up card. You can negate non-continuous spells and traps when they're played in response to them. And if you can make this card with both of these equipped to it, you've got 5 negates, which if you're patient can really hamper an opponent's strategy. Also, Agamande is really good in the grind as well, because with this, with your Lurry, you can, this card can summon back your Desiree from the graveyard. So what you can do is you can make your Desiree with its negates, like this. Once it's used up, if this card leaves the field, you can go Lurry, Lacrima, bring this back, quick effect, summon this back and equip. You now have a Desiree that's not quite as big as it used to be, but still pretty difficult to get over. Then on your own turn, you just re-equip this and you're back to where you were before, without using a single resource in your hand. Outside of that, we also play the rank 6s in Caesar and Ptolemaeus, M7. Now Caesar is 2 negates of an effect that summons a monster, which is really powerful. He does on one of the bigger beaters in the deck. However, M7 is really good at grinding because it can just once per turn it can bounce a card from the field or its player's graveyard, which means you can remove rival Fiendsmith deck's resources, or you can use it to recycle your hand traps, which is what I did most with it. We of course have the Banshee to go along with this. But the Princess. Please, I don't know why I keep calling this thing Banshee, it's a Princess. Anyway, this card, you play this card to make one of these two with your engraver. However, in the grind, you can just make this, and then every turn, discarding a hand trap is not a net loss, because it'll draw you a card when you discard them. Which means you can actually draw into more different hand traps, hopefully, and further grind out your opponents. This actually came up in a grind in the 3rd round, in Thinking with Malice. We both just spent our resources. I just made this with a Ghost Ogre and a Chill in hand, and I discarded the Chill to negate a monster's effect and drew into an Ash Blossom. So yeah, this card gave me an additional hand trap, which I think might have got me the win in that match. For other XCs, 1 Flare Dragon. This is good in time, and it's really good against Malice, because, yeah, enjoy paying 800 points per Malice now. And then that or M7 are really good to go into Zeus to help clear the board. Yes, I should be playing a Gaia Charger. Before anyone says that, I know I should be playing a Gaia Charger to make a 4 material Zeus. That would definitely be a change I make before going to Manchester. Then we have 1 SP Little Knight for additional removal. I played this with a theory that I could recycle my Fiends more in the grind, but it's never came up. This is probably what I cut for the Gaia Charger. And finally, of course, the 1 Chaos Angel. This card is great going second. You can remove anything from the field. It's a massive body. If you make it with your with your lights, it's hard to interact with. This is not as good as it would be in Labyrinth, where you can make it with a light and a dark and make it immune to destruction by battle or by effects, but it's still really powerful in this deck. And finally, the side deck. Put another different coloured sleeves. A few of my gold ones split. I need to get some new ones. Anyway, 3 cross out. We're playing about 20 hand traps. Why would we not play this to win in hand trap wars? Then we play Dimensional Barrier and Lancia, anti-Raziel, anti-Malice. Like I said, the one game I lost was a Malice game where I did this twice thanks to M7. How did that happen? Yeah, I'm fully expecting these cards to get hit soon, but until then, the Great Silver Bloods come the 2 best decks in the format, so why would I not play them? 3 Storm Strike. Going first, this can replace one of my hand traps. Actually, again, this is really good in the Malice matchup because I managed to summon one of their links and they didn't have many ways to extend beyond that, which really helped me win the third game against them. Honestly, I think at the moment this is the best of the solemn cards because it costs you the least amount of life points and it can just hit most things you want to hit. It's also really good if you're going first. If you can set this, and you can negate a hand trap. So most importantly, it helps you protect this from Ash Blossom because that can be the biggest choke point in this deck. And finally, the card I've moved out of the main to the side is Nibiru. Nibiru is great against decks like Malice or decks like Mermela, like big boards, but it does clash a lot with the Kashtira cards because they need an empty field to summon themselves. Now, it's not the worst because you can just summon this and any other hand trap or your Fiendsmith cards to go into Moon from that angle. And I've even had games in the past where I've just won with Nibiru beatdown because the opponent can't play because I opened just a bunch of hand traps, just playing this, keeping them at bay with hand traps, and then just hitting 3k every game, every turn can be really good sometimes. But I generally think this was the worst card in the deck for me because of what it does to my Kashtira cards. So yeah, that was my first 4-0 top in a long time at locals. This is probably the deck in some variant I was taking to the Manchester Open, and I hope I'll see some of you there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.